Hey, what up? What up, everybody? Today we are doing another stream at 7 p.m. Sort of celebrating this 250,000 subs that we have here on the channel. I appreciate you guys so much. Been amazing to me. A lot of growth over the past month. Today we're going to be talking about a personality who I've seen comments from because some people that I follow him, and I obviously know who he is. Considering I'm a sports guy and I've seen him in his takes before. What I'm about to show you here is a particularly stupid take. And that's just what it is. And I'm going to explain why and so forth here in a bit. But the guy we're going to be discussing is Bo Money Jones. If you watch ESPN, you've probably seen him. And his take definitely recent when it comes to all the social issues. You really can't get away from any of this in the sports realm nowadays. There's no escapism in that regards. There's no sports really going down. So a lot of people are talking about social issues and giving their social views, and you're seeing that this isn't really a field that they know much about. Now, that's not to say that they don't have a right to a position or the right to their opinion, and it's certainly not to say that people that are in the sports don't understand politics. That's or some of these social ills that we discuss. That is not what I'm saying at all. There are plenty of people that are knowledgeable on both. What I'm saying is that this is not what he understands, particularly about libertarianism, and I'm gonna tell you why. Bo Money Jones, and I think they had recently someone at the Cato Institute there, and I don't know if maybe that was his assessment of libertarianism or something like that. But he said there's a reason libertarians whose philosophy rests on the assumption that every member of society starts at the same place and has the same power are overwhelmingly white men, because only they could believe that shit is true. Now, of course, he's knocking white folks and white men, particularly in this case, white libertarians, because of what he doesn't understand. And this is what I say all the time about these types, is that they confuse their ignorance, their lack of knowledge, and they project that on someone else. And they essentially confuse themselves. So it's like, well, I don't understand it, therefore it doesn't make sense at all. That's not the case. You just don't understand it. And I wish that people that these blue check marks that strawman libertarianism, and certainly have been doing it throughout the pandemic, throughout this whole recent protests and everything that's going on, Black Lives Matter and so forth. So many of these tweets around libertarians are quiet right now. Libertarians aren't saying things. Libertarians do that. Libertarians believe this. And you're seeing the amount of ignorance that exists, certainly among his types, the corporate media types that live in the bubbles, man. So pretty much the only time that they ever really discuss, or more so actually debate, right, is maybe along in his profession, sports and so forth. But when it comes to actual libertarianism, there's no way that this guy is familiar with libertarianism and comes to that conclusion. None. It's an objectively wrong statement, because libertarianism doesn't rest upon this. But let me go through this before I go in on that. He says, whose philosophy rests on the assumption that every member of society starts at the same place and has the same power. That is not what the philosophy rests upon at all. Not only does it not rest upon that, it doesn't assume that. What it rests upon is private property rights, starting with self-ownership. This is why we hold true, and it's a simplification, sometimes an oversimplification, but a simplification nonetheless, to what we call the non-aggression principle. And obviously you don't have rights to use aggression, violate the private property rights of another individual, be it in their material possessions or their body, right? Every single thing can be, in a libertarian sense, can be broken down. And I know people hate to hear us talk about this because they don't understand it. When they think property, all they think is phones and stuff like that. They don't look at the fact that you're a property of your own self. This is why things like slavery or murder, or all these things are wrong, and we can describe how they are wrong in the property rights sense, because they are, let's say, in the act of punching someone is a violent bodily invasion. The act of slavery is a forcible use of one person to serve the purposes of another. These inherently violate libertarian principles. They violate the principle of non-aggression in this case. So the philosophy doesn't rest on that at all. It rests on private property rights. But it doesn't even assume at all, whether it rest upon it, stood upon it, or whatever, it does not ever assume that every member of society starts in the same place at the same power. That's stupid. Why would it assume that? It doesn't even assume that, look, we are individuals. And modern libertarianism in the modern sense, in terms of what we advocate, and I'm not talking about the etymology of the term, I'm not talking about leftism or so, and so forth. I'm talking about in the modern sense, after Rothbard hijacked the term, right? It's an individualist, like, philosophy. Of course it doesn't assume that every member starts in the same place, because we're not equal in that regards. We're individuals. Hell, I'm not equal to myself on a different day. Nonetheless, we differ. We differ in action. We differ in preference, motivations. This is what makes us beautiful as human beings. But that in itself is going to highlight how some people are going to be in better off, let's say, social statuses than others. They're going to be able to do, let's say with money, for example, things that other people can't do. You don't start at an even playing field. It doesn't pretend to know that. Every individual is different. People move up and move down economic classes, and would more so in a libertarian society. And we assume that it would move up and down classes all the time. Economic classes, social classes. This is what happens. People can piss away their money and so forth. For example, mine is more of a continuous growth. My mother is richer off and better off than her mother. I am better off than both of them. This is just a continuous growth. And sometimes it works the opposite way. Whereas to somebody's father was maybe more wealthy, or grandfather was more wealthy, and their grandchild pissed their money away, did stupid things, whatever. But either way, what I'm saying is we differ in terms of our preference and in terms of our action. We know this. Someone that is pursuing something that is very valuable, let's say from a like living standard, right? More like a job. They may be pursuing something that is going to make them very wealthy. It's something that's very valuable to society. It's something that they can make a lot of money off of and so forth. And it's scarce in that sense, which is generally what you're paying for. Not everybody can be a doctor, but a lot of people can, let's say, flip burgers. Not the same degree I'm talking about, just like at McDonald's or something like that. This is why you pay more. It's a scarcity thing. So why doctors are paid so much. Very valuable. It's scarce in that context. And why you would think the person that's mopping the floors at a fast food restaurant doesn't get paid as much. Nonetheless, if that person, somebody, let's say, pursues that, they are obviously going to be better off than the person that becomes a doctor and so forth. Better off than the person financially, let's say. Maybe not even morality, like from a morale standpoint, might not be better off, because some people are happy doing jobs where they don't get paid that much, right? But this again goes to the fact that we are individuals, and it's all about the lens that you look through. Some people are perfectly fine with where they are at. They don't want to be richer. They don't want to be certainly poorer, but they don't want to be richer. They don't have those aspirations to be richer. And there are absolutely going to be people that get short in the stick. Life is not fair all the time. The idea of libertarianism is we want to rid the world of aggression. We want to limit the amounts of aggression that exists, the violations of people's private property rights. That's if we've got to the point to where we are at a libertarian society, that's what we got to, a point to where people in the geographical area understand the importance of non-aggression. That's what libertarianism is about. It is not about assuming that everybody starts at the same place. Obviously, when me and Lady Ripper have our children, they're going to be in better off place than I was, let's say, as a child being raised by basically a single mother. It's a different setup, but that's just what happens, right? But libertarianism isn't about even trying to to change that mere fact, because that's an inevitable thing considering that we're individuals. The only way that would make sense is if society starts at the same place and has the same power, everybody. The only way that makes sense is if everybody's a robot and every child that said robot had started with a blank slate. That's not how it works. We understand that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It recognizes our individuality. That's what it is. So whatever life you want to live in that regards, it's not going to be perfect, obviously, not just going to become rich overnight or something like that. But we want to limit the amounts of aggression. We want to acknowledge the concept of private property rights, absolute private property rights, maximizing liberty. That's what it is about. It is not about every individual starting at the same place. That's not what it even pretends to do. But this goes back to the point that I was making when it came to corporate media has, and it sucks, man, because I've seen it so much, how corporate media has strawmanned the living hell out of libertarianism, and they get to do that because dogs are barking. Sorry about that. Probably a package coming in or something like that. Yeah, just go ahead and start barking while I'm in the middle of a video. Hey! Calm down, man. Hey, bear boy. Talking back. Anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, libertarianism. When it comes to corporate media, blue check marks, and so forth, they get to say whatever it is they say. They have a following on Twitter. They have a platform such as ESPN in this regards, in which they can say whatever it is they want to say, and generally it go unchallenged. You don't have to know what you're talking about when you have a bunch of other boneheads that may follow you and agree with you. So many likes and retweets on this. Like as I'm watching it, 6.8 thousand likes. 6.8 thousand likes from a man that is wrong, objectively wrong on this case, but it doesn't matter. When you get the benefit of yelling in an echo chamber, you don't have to be right when it comes to this particular subject matter. Now, I've seen this again going through this whole pandemic and everything else, where you see libertarians are so quiet. Libertarians don't say this. Libertarians do this. And it's like, I don't think you guys ever follow libertarianism. Libertarians, you may know one or two, maybe, but I don't think you actually follow libertarians, and I don't think you actually try to understand the philosophy that it is that they're advocates of. So you get to get away with just saying all kinds of crazy stuff, and it sounds good because, again, this is just the validation of the sort of the following that you have, because you're just saying whatever to be saying. And I tell you what, I am a black libertarian, obviously. Here. And also, by the ending point, he says are overwhelmingly white men. I don't know what exactly he means by that. Are libertarians, if you could somehow, depending on where you took the poll, are there libertarians, and most of them are white. I don't know about men, but white, maybe. I don't know what overwhelmingly means in this case, but that's not a knock to the philosophy itself. I mean, that would assume that everybody, I look at these Antifa types who are communists, and I don't see a whole lot of black folk with them either. Do they have the right positions there? And they generally would agree with some of these social ills, and approach, and certainly the solutions, as far as you do. And not all I see, but most of them are white. Look at this Seattle thing going on. That Raz guy is the only guy that I saw in that zone, aside from a couple of more sprinkled in. Most of them are just white dudes and white chicks. So while we got there, I mean, that's a topic for a different discussion, but that's not an argument against anything. It's like, okay, well, most of people that are this color tend to think this way, therefore it's wrong. Like, that's not an argument. Like, let's talk about the actual philosophy. I know plenty, obviously, black libertarians, and I know Maj Toure quote tweeted him as well. I tell you what, Bo Money, I'm sure Maj would take it up as well, but I'm certainly offering myself out to you. I can, go over to the Blaze Studio, and I would love to be on whatever show that you're on, and we can have a discussion about it. Definitely when it comes to all of these social ills that are happening right now, the libertarian solution, certainly from a black brother that is a libertarian. I would love to have a live discussion with you on this topic. we can mic us up here, and I can go. I'm sure ESPN Dallas is, I can go to their studios or what have you, and I can have a discussion on whatever show it is. And I would love to discuss libertarianism, because I obviously take issue with what you said, because it's such a gross. It's not even a misunderstanding. It's an effective straw man, and it's being intellectually lazy and certainly intellectually dishonest. But hit me up. I'd love to have a discussion with you about it, because you seem like a smart person, and you should be able to grasp it. I just think that you maybe are sort of screaming in this echo chamber, and that echo chamber really prevents you from learning anything about libertarianism.